Hi guys, welcome to another cool film. Alright guys, it's been a month now, we haven't released a film. We sincerely apologize for that gap. And the reason has to be that we are planning to have an official email address. So we no longer want to be tied to Gmail, but we want to have an official email address, and that also comes with us also having an official website. So we are working on it, and in some months' time, we will fully migrate to the respective domains that will reflect codefilm's objectives and codefilm's mission and vision. Alright, guys, so we've been following us for enterprise infrastructure basics and the developer. You realize that we've come a long way, and now what we are currently looking at is cloud deployment. If you are new here, you should see the link to the playlist on your screen. So this time around, we want to look at the synergy between Docker and Jenkins. We know what Jenkins does. Jenkins automates the manual processes that we mostly go through when we are trying to lift off the application from our environment to that of a target environment. So instead of going about the manual process of doing um, or handling the building of the application all the way to the deployment, we can actually go with a pipeline or a script that can assist in doing that. So we have a server. You send your request to the server. The server processes your request, and the server does the work of doing the deployment. So it's an agent, but we also call it a server, and it's also a solution. And that's what we're currently using for automated um, build and deployment. We also looked at Docker. When we understand why we are using Docker, we realize that Docker is a way of putting our application into a container. So you think regardless of the environment that you are going to deploy on, you just know that I have a technology that will do an isolation from the target environment. It doesn't look at the target environment, it just knows that the application can run in a container. So it's self-isolated from the environment. So if there are any infections in the environment that can affect the application in terms of configuration, parameters, variables, and you name it, it's going to be isolated completely from that target environment. So it runs in its own container. So you have an application which is not running on the full scale of the virtual machine, on the full scale of the target environment, but it runs irrespective of its own process, which is um, a very cool way of going about deploying an application. So it's more, I'll say it's more respected with that, or if respected is not the way you say it, it's much better, to go with that approach. Right, so we just want to look at how we can link Docker to Jenkins so that this time around, when we have a target environment, whether it's in China, whether it's in US, we have no problem. All that we know is that we have a technology called Docker. So whether it's the runtime environment there is not supported or not, we have no business trying to find or provision an environment of that type. All we know to do is we put the application in a container and just send it over to me, or create an image of the application. Let's have the image of the application. You take the snapshot, you send us the image, then we just build the image to get the application running. So it becomes very portable. I find it being very portable too is you are you are safe with regards to you doing deployment with Docker. You don't have to worry too much or think a lot about the target environment. So we just want to combine the two, then we'll call it a wrap for this code film. So we've already understood the CI/CD process that comes with regards to Jenkins or automation. So the Jenkins pipeline or script helps us to accomplish CI/CD. So we have a repository as usual, the normal software development life cycle, we have to plan our solution first, which is a solution to a problem. And there are so many problems out there. So we are going to use software to solve that problem. We code it and we keep our solution, or we keep that problem or that system in a repository somewhere. We can't leave it in our local host. It has to be kept safely somewhere so that once and when we need that system, we can update it, we can improve upon it, we can enhance it, we can do so many things to it so that the solution to that problem is always available for use. It's always robust. It's always I don't say fresh, but I'll say it's always fresh for usage. Yeah, so that's just by the way. And then we also have the building process, the testing, and then the release phase too. So we have the deploy. So we are mostly going to look at the deploy. And then for cloud providers, we have AWS or Google Cloud. And we'll get into that. There's an interesting code from around we want to produce around cloud native applications. So as typically applications that we mostly build are mostly meant to run on traditional servers, but going forward, because of clouds, the beauty about cloud, cloud with cloud, you don't have to worry too much. Issues with regards to scalability is not a problem with cloud because you provision VMs as and when the load is increasing or decreasing. It's not your going to be your headache in cloud. It's going to be handled by the providers, by the subscriptions you make, and there are so many intelligence that can be applied to make this even more robust and to take away all those overheads or those costs that comes with running applications on-prem. And we have the operation stage, we have the monitoring, then we are done. So this is what we just want to look at, but we want to look at that with Docker and Jenkins. So as the operation stage, we'll look at it in another codefilm, that's with full scale applications. And we want to take our time to get there so that we really appreciate what we are doing. So we are just going to look at how Docker and Jenkins is working together, all because we are trying to target cloud providers. Cloud environments may not necessarily have all the runtime environments that we need, because probably maybe bringing a solution with a different runtime environment, and the cloud provider will tell you because of your runtime environment, you can run your solution and it becomes a whole lot of problem. Because of that, we just want to go with Docker. So Docker will help us to solve all that issues. And most cloud providers are running on Docker so that we don't have to worry about the target environment. You just put your application in a container as you've spoken about it. So we'll get there by in our local host. We have a VM, we have a virtual machine that will handle the cloud scenario. That's a VPS. Then we have the automation server that is going to build and run our pipeline so I can send the solution all the way from this VM to this VM. So, and that's the beauty of the script. Yeah, without the script, you have to manually do all that. Then later you have to come and now deploy. It's a lot of work. And as we've seen in our Jenkins operation, CI/CD process makes it easier for you to get your solution released into the target market or to meet market needs as quick as possible because all developers are integrating or continuously integrating their solutions to a problem. You can get real-time feedback from all stakeholders. Then you can easily keep iterating and improving your solution to get the expected results that we want. But when it comes to manual deployment and manual processes, you realize that there's going to be a lot of inconveniences and the effort and cost even to consider improvement, it shies away from you because you think about the process you have to go through and then I just want to categorize everything as the operational overheads that will be coming out of this and you think nah it's not worth the effort or even if it is time to market will be delayed because you wouldn't want to stress yourself too much when it comes to that. So CI/CD or Docker Jenkins is going to solve all these problems for us. Then we can see we've had a successful deployment. So without talking much, let's go straight to our IDE and let's do some work here. So I have my Jenkins file open, and then this Jenkins file initially was running a script that was not meant to deploy via Docker. This script that we have here was doing deployment with more files or jar files, it could be any of them, and we just prepare it and it goes to the target environment based on the scripting that we do over here. And because we are moving to cloud, we want to move to cloud, sorry, what we are doing is that we want to containerize. So in our latest script, we've updated it to do containerization and do deployment. So this is how we've synchronized or we've integrated Docker with Jenkins by just improving the script we are running or updating the script we are running with the Docker dependencies. That's all that we've done here. So this whole section is just for the Docker stage, but no new updates or no new, I don't want to say implementation, but it's not anything new from what we've been doing manually. We are just using the script to guide us. So the script is handling all the manual process that goes into it and going to send that command to the server to be able to process everything on your behalf. So your server is your helper, or the Jenkins server is your helper. Okay, so that's it for just understanding the updates we've done. Now to really uh, have a feel or to be able to experience this integration or this synergy, we want to go into our application controller and we are going to make some updates to our controllers. So the updates we want to do is basically to have an endpoint that will let us know that because we are obeying continuous integration or CI/CD principles, we have a solution that one developer worked on, and then the developer that worked on it has solved the problem. Then he just goes ahead and commits his code, and the whole process starts. So we want to test that the Docker side is also working. The CI/CD part, we know that it is working because we've done it before, but let's see if the Docker bit is actually working. So that when that is done, then we see, okay, when we are going to the cloud, then you look at the whole um, architecture behind that. So we have Bobby. Bobby has decided to create an endpoint, and the endpoint that Bobby just creates is, let's just call it Yan. Yeah, and just you just see Yan. Yeah, so this is the endpoint Bobby has just created, Yan, and it solves a problem. So we send a message when we call Yan. We send a text message. So anytime we call Yan, API text message, we just want to say, let's say Yan will just say Yan, and then Yan will give it a date or a date time. Let's say date time. So we replace date time with local date time that now. So I just when we call Yan, Yan should just yarn back to us with a, I believe this will be from the toString. Yeah, local date. So when we call Yan, Yan should just yarn back to us with Yan and a date. So that's the update we've just done. So what we do is that let's go ahead and commit this implementation and get to test our endpoint and see if Docker is actually the script and Docker's communication and the script and Docker's synchronization has successfully taken place. So relying on our knowledge from CI/CD, GitHub alone cannot speak to the Jenkins server. There has to be a way that GitHub will speak to the Jenkins server. So we're going to call a URL or we're going to give GitHub a URL so that GitHub will receive a notification on that URL. Then the server that, or the agent that processes the script will go ahead and begin its work. So the GitHub has to knock on the server, or has to communicate to Jenkins server that, hey dude, we have a new request in our repo. Go ahead and assist with the deployment. So there has to be that form of handshake so that they'll know that something has occurred. If that's not done, then there's no way that the Jenkins server can extend a helping hand to handle the build and the deployment. So there has to be that handshake. So to do that, what we'll do is that we are going to we're going to start our automation server and our VPS. So we'll start our server, and we are going to also start our VPS. So we are starting our server because automation server because we want to be able to generate an endpoint, not an endpoint, but we want to be able to expose this virtual machine to the internet. And we can only do that with a principle that is called reverse proxy, which is not covered here. So we just want to be able to tell the outside world that you can speak to the automation server on this URL, and all because the router we've connected our virtual machine to has a way of assigning IP addresses to all the VMs. And due to some IP addresses range that are provided, not all IP addresses are reachable on the internet. Some are private, some are public. So we have to be able to get that private IP address public in such a way that you can actually speak to the Jenkins server on that particular endpoint. It's a little bit technical than this, but there's no directions for that class. Also, sorry, not a class, but this code film. It's also a learning process, so not for the class, but for this code film. Yeah. All right. So that's just a disclaimer that we don't produce courses. We just share technical experiences. All right. So with that in mind, what we are going to do now is that we are going to generate the public URL. So first things first is VPS is up. We don't want to go to the VPS now. Let's go to the automation server, and then let's log into the server. And when we log into the server, we are going to do two things. We want to know the IP address. So the IP address for the automation server says 192.168.0 and 187. That's beautifully captured. The next thing we want to know is if our Jenkins server is up. So we do sudo systemctl and we'll see status of the Jenkins server. We'll call app user to password. So our Jenkins server is up. We don't have an issue with that. And Jenkins mostly run on port 8080. You can also find that out. There are a number of ways of finding that out. One of the way that is out there is to actually go with the list of command, but sometimes this will not it does not return it. So I'll go with what I mostly use. I'll look at the number of processes out there and I'll try and do a grep and of a particular port 8080. And okay, so this is also not showing anything. Then let's do a grep with Jenkins rather. Okay, so good. I have something. I'm seeing something better. That's because checking the process does not reveal the port. It just tells you the process ID and some other information. If you're looking for a port, you have to use a command that helps us to find out of a port. So you searching for Jenkins has actually given us some information. So we have Jenkins as the user, then it gives us other information. So it makes us know that Jenkins is working somewhere in the background. Yep, so that's because we're running Jenkins with a user. We created a user just for Jenkins. All right, so uh, our our Jenkins server is up. Yep, so we just go ahead and let's just get the public IP address out. We have a cool film on Unix commands and some very lovely stuff on Unix. But it's taking a while, so it's not yet ready. So we'll just take our time and prepare that one too as well, so that we can actually do a lot of cool stuff. Yeah. So we'll look at all these commands and the directory structure and some of the commands that are out there. So just to be familiarize ourselves with it, and you don't know, we never know where we will need it. So, some of the beautiful commands are even xarg, which we've used in our Jenkins script, which we'll look at it in. Also, xarg and another beautiful one that you should look at that in our Jenkins script. But the beautiful one out right now is the xarg, which I've really come to love. Yeah, so look at that in the Jenkins script to see how we're even able to handle different builds and different containers so that we always have a fresh container on the server. So with that understanding, let's go ahead and get our public IP address. So to get our public IP address, I'll open another terminal and I'll use Termius. Yeah, so I just want to go into the VM, but I don't want to go with the VMs. I don't want to go into the VM via the Oracle VirtualBox Manager. No, I want to go with a different interface. I don't want to use some technical terms here. Yeah, like client, and no, I don't want to say all those things. I just want to go into the VM. It's as simple as that. So right now, all these that I'm in the VM, the IP addresses are the same. There's nothing different here. Right now, what I want to do is that we have to get a public URL for this server. So to do that, we use a tool called Piggy. Piggy is a way of you getting or you um reverse proxying, or should I say I don't use reverse proxy, but the ability for you to curl a private IP address into a public IP address. So the technical term would be to do a reverse proxy, but I don't use all those terms. But if you just want to get a public URL from a private IP address, it's as simple as that. So we're going to use a tool to do that. That tool has a way of doing it, and it will give you a public URL. With that public URL, you can go ahead and do whatever you want. So to start, we'll enter our local address here. I already have a command here because we've been releasing public URLs, but let's go ahead and let's do it again. So all these are we type our local host, the IP address, and then the port. So we are trying to do a reverse proxy from the machine that we are connected. That we are targeting, and then also the port that the application is listening to. So we'll go ahead and just type 192.168.0.187. So that's the same IP address that our VM is using. That's our automation server. It's the same IP address. But we have to also add a port because the application Jenkins sits on a particular port. So this is the command that we need. So we just need to go and paste this command and we get a public IP address. It's as simple as that. And so all we'll do is that we go ahead and type it here. So say P443, then minus R, then O, then 192.168, the target IP address we want to do the reverse proxy, 187, then do 8080, and say free.pd.io. Okay, so let's wait and get a public IP address, the public URL for that. And there's also an interesting thing that has to do with SSH. So we have a cool film too coming out on that. So SSH, especially with regards to the authentication and even the concept of SSH. So we have a cool film that will be very ready very soon, so that we appreciate everything that goes on with our Linux interface and some of the things out there. So we have an IP, we have a URL. So this URL that is out there simply says that once you have this URL, you can actually reach our private Jenkins server on this URL. That's all that it means. So we can speak to the Jenkins server on that particular port with this URL. So we're going to just go ahead and do that. We can actually test it. So if we test this IP address, you realize that the IP address, the URL here, sorry, will land you to the Jenkins server. And then the Jenkins server is actually running on 168.0.187.80. So if we compare the two, it should be the same interface you are landing on. So this is the private IP address interface that is given out, and that of the public URL is also the same. So we know that we have done the right thing, and we can actually see it being logged here. That's why we wanted this interface to be able to see the logs, or to see some activity happening, or to do some monitoring, or to observe to observe what is happening in the system or in the server. Right, so we are okay now. So what we want to do is that with this URL, let's go and give it to GitHub. So our GitHub can start communicating to Jenkins on that URL. So we are going to tell GitHub that we've gotten your URL for you. You have nothing to worry about. Just let me know when the code has been committed and we can build. Just imagine if you work from home and you just close from work, or you have a number of tasks because of a pipeline. You don't even have to stress yourself. You just commit your code and your solution is live. It's as simple as that. No manual deployment and all that stress is all taken away. Alright, so let's go to our Jenkins Docker app. And what we want to do now is that we want to tell Jenkins app, we want to tell GitHub about the new URL or that communication pipeline. So we'll go to webhooks and we'll edit this. Let's enter our TOTP, which is our two-factor one OTP. So I'm getting the TOTP from my authenticator device. Once this is true, then we go ahead and commit, then we'll test again. So realize that it's not difficult, it's just straightforward. So there are more interesting codefilms coming out, and you wouldn't want to miss any one of them. Okay, so we'll go ahead and proceed. So this is the endpoint that GitHub, the Jenkins server has set in its application that when you send a request to this endpoint, I'll know that you are trying to inform me of a new request to build and deploy a certain application. So it's just like as we have in our own application. So we have an endpoint called yarn, the same way in the Jenkins solution too. In the Jenkins application or server, they built an endpoint called GitHub.webhook, and that endpoint is waiting for you. It's just sitting there listening to get a request. So you just need to supply the request or the URL, the public URL that you are coming with to that endpoint. So it's just listening. So if you send it, it will acknowledge it. If you don't send it, it won't acknowledge it. So you just need to understand that it's there in the application, in the Jenkins server, but it has to accept a request. So you need to pass a request to it. So that if it comes in, then it goes ahead and it does its work. If it doesn't come in, then it doesn't do its work. So that's the notification that it's expecting. Alright, so with this understanding, let's go ahead and edit our URL with what we generated. So say rnvxu. So let's start with that. And we'll go to, so we'll just say r rnvxu. Let's do vxu. Then we have 154 161. Then we have 154, 161. We have 139. Then we have 139. Then we have 7. Alright, so we've done the update. Nothing here changed. Only this changed. So we've done the update. Then let's save our update. Okay, so our update is done. Now let's go ahead and let's get GitHub to speak to Jenkins so the whole build process takes place with we seeing everything happening, all the magic happening. So we'll go ahead and commit our code. Let's get started with the real deal. So we'll say git add. We'll say git commit. Let's check the git status. So git status is telling that there are two files that have been tempered. We have the Jenkins file, we have the application controller. Now Jenkins file, because of some white spaces, there's a command you can use to check the git version, git def. I'm not constant with this command. Like find the difference between two files, git def. Right. So maybe another time. So we'll just go ahead and commit. So the git add, git commit, and we just say yarn endpoint. I'll say release yarn endpoint. All right. So we are now going to do our push. So once we push to our remote repo, we have to be able to start the build process automatically. So we want to have our terminal acknowledge that we did a push, then it was logged. So we'll be looking at our terminal to see if it actually gets logged. So we'll just say git, and we'll have to select the particular remote URL that we want to speak to. Apparently, we're in the right directory to know that we have a git instance here, but to be sure of the particular URL or the label assigned to that particular URL, we want to make that commit because origin is not the original here. It's DOG because of reuse and other factors. So we say git push DOG, then we push it to the master branch. Okay. So if it's all successful, well, that's fantastic. It says being logged and it says 200, which means that the Jenkins server has received the request to go ahead and build the application and do the deployment. So we'll log into our Jenkins server and we're going to see if we can actually see any new changes. I won't go with this IP address, you don't know. Let's go with this one because the password will be able to, yeah, Google's Chrome will suggest the password to us. So we are logging into our Jenkins server and we are going to see how Jenkins is handling the request that he received from GitHub to be able to build and run our solution for us. Let's give it a while. So we can actually see some activities happening here. So let's go to the Jenkins Docker app pipeline. Let's go and view what is happening. Alright, so we can see there's a build going on for 71. Build 71. Then we're going to look at what's happening with the process that we've kickstart. So we have a number of views we want to use. We want to use the console output view, pipeline overview, and pipeline console. Yep, so I like the graphical view that comes with the Jenkins server. This is just the pipeline overview, but the pipeline console. Yes, the pipeline console gives you the view that actually shows you what's happening, like all the commands that you've set in a form in a very nice way. It's much more, it's cleaner. You have the raw state, which is the console output, but sometimes this may be you may find yourself a little bit lost. But the one to do with the pipeline console, you actually see your command that is in place and other steps. So we're having an issue. There's a build, there's an issue already. The build has failed. So wow, it says restricted type var. So we didn't clean our code. So we didn't clean our code. So the updates we didn't clean our code. So it's complaining about var, but we have cleaned it. So what again? Let's check again. Let's see. It says illegal reference to restricted type var. Application controller line 3227. Let's go and be sure it's 3227. And let's check if we've done any import. Yeah, Lombok var. Okay, so line 32. Right, so this is a Lombok var, sorry. So let's go ahead and build again. So we'll say remove var. And do it again. We're pushing again. So we'll go to our server and we should see a new build process that has been kicked in place. We confirm from our terminal has acknowledged it, so the build process should actually start. So we'll go and check if there's a new build running for that particular pipeline. Alright, so we have 72. So let's be patient. Let's monitor the outputs again and we'll test again with another deployment and confirm that Docker is running our application this time around. So we have our console output, pipeline console, and pipeline overview. Oh, okay. So we have the console, we have the pipeline console, and we also have the pipeline overview. So we've done the checkout successfully. We are waiting for other processes to go through. So we just have to wait. Then when everything is ready, we'll test with Postman and we confirm that the build was successful or not. Or the deployment, sorry, the deployment and the build was successful. All right, so let's be patient and let's test this endpoint. So we are going to have a new release coming out aside the ones that we have set for the year, which I want us to look at. We've already started some of our target expectation for this year. We've looked at some JavaScript implementations. We've looked at some core implementation too as well. And we are here to look at the large scale software systems and Spring security. So the Spring security bit is what I can't wait to start sharing because that one is very, very interesting. So, because it's very, very interesting. So we'll get there. But the DevOps is what we are currently looking at. That's the CI/CD process we've just started. And just as the basics is not there's a full course on its own with different aspects of automation and how to go about building and releasing your application in an automated way, removing all the manual processes. So we'll look at that later on. But as it stands now, we think we've covered most of the things we want to do for this year. So you can check the playlist or the playlist should actually show here. So we'll share a link to that as well so that you can actually go ahead and check it out. So that's just by the way that aside the number of ones we've mentioned like the SSH, the Unix commands, we also have some of these ones that are also waiting for us to look at it. Let's go ahead and check what's happening. Let's go to our it is our pipeline console. So we are now at the testing stage. So it seems a number of stages have been completed. So let's check from our pipeline overview. Build was successful and we are now testing. So pipeline console too is also handling the views for us and showing us what's going on in the server. And we also have the console output, which is very raw. Charlie dumps everything and leaves it for you. So this is a server. So Jenkins itself is a server. So it's an application. So as not any other application, you can actually have APIs to it. You can customize it. You can think outside the box of it. So just like a normal application like Facebook that's out there, it's also an application that you can do some interesting stuff with. So if you think later on you want to receiving notifications for fieldwork, just like as we saw in the with what we looked at, like what we experienced, you realize that there's a way of writing the script so that you also have to you can send notifications. So there's nothing new. You just have to look through the documentation, find out what you need, and update the scripts as and when the requests are coming. So when you want to send notification in a pipeline, then you decide how you're going to do that. So anything that comes into mind, you just have to find out how it's supported in Jenkins because it's an automation server. As the documentation states, it makes mention that Jenkins is an automation server. It says a self-contained open source automation server, which can be used to automate all sorts of tasks. So related to building, testing, and delivering. So anything that comes into your mind, as and when we are interacting with the server, you just have to find how Jenkins supports that and make the necessary updates. So that was just by the way. So now let's go back to our pipeline console. Okay, so fantastic. So we've covered some number of stages now. I like to see grid, and it now looks like we're trying to generate our image, and we've generated it already, and try to keep the image in a repo. Just same way we have our source code in a repo, we also have the images in a repo, so that anybody can get a hand of the image and run the application. So that's the beauty about Docker, making the application isolated from the target environment. So even if I go and pick the image and I generate on my Mac or on a different runtime environment, I'm not really bothered. All I know is I'm running a technology that supports virtualization, and that's operating system virtualization concept or containerization. So we are trying to get our image to the cloud. That's our Docker repo. Then if that's also successful, we'll be able to run our image as a container. So let's just wait for this to end, then we'll test our yarn endpoint. So we'll be back with updates for the push process because sometimes it takes a while and we haven't yet taken our time to go into the reason. So we'll be back roughly maybe a minute or 10 minutes time. Yep. Alright guys, so our build is ready. We've gone through the deployment process. So we can actually visualize it that everything's complete here. So what we do now is that we are going to go ahead and call our API and test the response that's coming from the API. So go ahead and make the postman call to it. If we receive the response from it, then we'll see that our test was successful. Okay guys, so sorry about that. The weather is changing here. So let's go into our Jenkins collection. Let's create a new request. And let's add a request to it. Then let's make a call to the API. So we are going to call the service in our VPS. And we need to know the IP address of our VPS. So we'll step into our VPS virtual machine. Then we are going to give it a username. Just enter the username and password. Let's find out what the IP address is. IPA. So the IP address for this device is 192.168.0.195. So go here and just give HTTP making the call on HTTP 192.168.0.195. Then we need to find the context root for this. So we'll go to let's check on our application, resources, system resources, application and properties. Then it's a Jenkins Docker app. So let's have this copy. Let's paste it. Then we are going to call the yarn endpoint. So let's call yarn. Let's call yarn. Let's send the request over. Let's see if we get any response. So it says connection refused. So there's an issue. So let's call it on port 8080. Wow. Still connection refused. So there seems to be an issue. So let's find out what the issue is. So we'll step into our virtual machine. That's for our VPS. Then we are going to look at the active processes that Docker has for us. So let's clear. Let's that's the active containers, which is Docker PS processes. So we have one process which is running, and the port is 80. Okay, it says it's port 8082. 8082. So we're not calling the right port. So that's where the issue is coming from what we're seeing over here. So let's just make those updates. So connection refused. That's why having connection refused. So say port 8082 for the service again. Alright, so now we're getting a response from the service, but it's telling us there's 404 not found. And we can actually view the Docker logs for this to see how our application is reacting in the container. So to do that, we will go ahead and say, first we need to know the container ID. So to find the container ID, as we did to find the active process, we can just do find the active process. Find the active process, it lists the Docker ID at 595 and continues. F So I said 5 F9 F9F. So do con Docker container. Let me see logs into F9F. Fantastic. So we go, let's see. Yeah, so my screen is video full screen mode. So let's think. Let's do this. And my screen is floating all over. Alright, so let's exit this process. Let's exit the full screen mode. Then let's try a different way of solving our solving our problem. So we'll do that by let's close this. Let's turn on the VPN. So view. Then we'll say let's switch to the full screen mode. Um, Better still, let's log into the VPS using our terminal. I think that will make it easier. And we can actually go inspecting, find out what the issues are. So we'll create a new connection and we'll try and enter VPS. So we don't have a list of hosts available. So let's make a new connection. So new local terminal. That's a local terminal. We can do an SSH to the main one, but we don't want to go with that process. So let's find the other way around it. So trying to figure it out quickly. So we'll go ahead and okay, let's do this rather. Let's uh, let's build on one of the old ones. So we can actually leverage on one of the old connections and enter our application. This one is closed. Observe as I'll do hmm, quickly. I don't want to start a new terminal just because I can't find what I want here. Going to the vault here. Let me say new host. Yeah, so if we'll go with the vault, so we'll go to vault, then make the updates. So enter 192.168.0.195. Then we'll call this our VPS. Then we'll give it the username of VIP app user. Unfortunately, we haven't created a user for that. VPS is a clone, and we'll give it the same password. Then we'll just say code connect. So the SSH is successful. Enter the box. Then we're in the box now. So we'll clear screen. Let's maximize this. Now let's go ahead and do our Docker PS again. Let's find the active containers. It's listed perfectly. Now let's go into the logs. Docker, and then it's a container that we're looking into the logs. So F9C. Fantastic. So this is much more better. At least we see something more interesting. So it gives us the logs and everything that is happening. So our request is naturally not, it's not entering our application. If we were like it would have shown in the logs. So it's just in 404. It's not being logged. If I call it a process again, nothing is being logged. So let's make the update. Let's make the update. So hello. Uh, thoughts. Right, so go with API and we go with yarn. So hit the collection at API or we hit the collection at API. That's API, then we sync in at yarn or we enter the yarn endpoint. So we hit enter again and we get the response that we wanted, that yarn. So let's confirm that you're actually calling from yarn. So let's do our Docker logs again. And this time around, we see something different. API endpoint call from Linux, which means that we are inside the yarn endpoint. At least we are seeing something different. So, for what else, what we can do is that we can actually add another log statement here, and we'll do we're making our login better. So we say API endpoint called from no longer Linux, but let's see inside. Let's just do this and say inside yarn endpoint. I'll say let's make it like this. Let's see. Hooray! Inside yarn endpoint. Yeah. Yeah, then we backtrack on that. Yeah. So let's just keep it simple. Go ahead and even find the yarn endpoint by using an HTTP servlet request. You just say request. So I'll just trying to print the yarn endpoints just to make it much more readable and much more understandable. So we say get URL. Let's just do get request URL. Yeah. So we're inside yarn endpoint, then we can print the request URL, then yarn message, yarn text message, and then we'll print the message as well too. So we're just improving our login just to help us understand what's going on in the service. So this is the new update we've done. So if we go ahead and build another image out of this, we should realize that the old image or the old container has to be destroyed so that we can actually see the new changes. And that's how we're handling that in the script is by using some of the Linux commands that we'll be looking at in a new codefilm. So we actually wrote this script just as it is, just as we would have done it manually. So there are some ways of handling that. So we have using awk. We are using an awk command and we are using the exarch command. Org is a command that helps us to print the container ID, and exarch is the command that helps us to stop a container that's already running. So this because of these two commands, it makes it possible for us to always get a fresh container. So with org, we print the container ID, then so you pick the we copy the container ID to a file. Then with that file, we save the file as input to org. So org just org, I don't see input per se, but org runs a command to the file. Then with the file's input, the file's output, we input it to exarch. Exarch takes a command, then it executes the command with the output or the output coming from the file, which is going to serve as the input to the command. So this is the command that exarch is. So it takes an argument of command, then which is it has been registered, then it just takes the container ID. So we look at that in another code film. This is not the class for that. Or the code films for that. Then we just go ahead and run it. So we are just trying to get fresh builds all the time. So we just say now git add. Then we say git commit. Then we say improve login message. Yeah. So we have to push this. So I think when we're trying to find our VPS terminal, I realized that our Jenkins server's public URL is down. Over the time as I see this, so we'll generate a new one, update GitHub, then we test for our new changes as well. So basically, we're actually done with this cool film. So, oh, we've closed the terminal again. Sorry. Let's generate a new one. So basically, the cloud deployment that we are looking on, we've actually started the process. So we'll go ahead, we'll take this further in another cool film, and we'll start getting a little bit nerdy. So these cool films, all we do is we just share our experiences. We don't do anything um, extraordinary. We just day-to-day experiences that we encounter. So you can reach out to us for now via the email address that you are using for any inquiries, any support, any any form of collaboration to us. Well, our mails are open, so we are just waiting for your mails. All right. So I'll say it says okay, the hook was successfully updated. So which means that we've registered a new callback URL. So what we're going to do is that now we're going to do a git push. So we'll go ahead and we'll push to dog start, and we'll trigger a new build process. For this, we'll just wait when the build is when the build is ready. We'll come and just call the API and test. So it says acknowledge GitHub has sent the request to Jenkins, or it has told Jenkins that there's a new request, so please handle it for me. So Jenkins is going to get a request and start the whole build CI, or let me say the whole CI/CD principle or CI/CD flow. Yeah, so let's log in to our application and let's observe the new build as it's being taken care of by Jenkins. Right, so open link in new tab, then yeah, I have the console output. Let's go to my favorite of all, which will be the pipeline console. Yeah, and then I'll pick the pipeline overview too as well. So pipeline console, we are doing our Maven clean package, and all the commands align or tally with all the line tallies with what we have over here. So Maven clean package, echo building stage. We actually see everything that's happening in the script. So that's why I really love that view. Most of the time, it's the console output I'll be looking about after discovering this. I just swung straight to this. So let's just wait. When 73 is built, 73 is ready, then we go ahead and we test and then we call it error for this code film. So with the help of, just imagine if we're doing all this deployment manually. 73 builds. Just imagine like testing and releasing 73 times just for a build before the official release. It's so stressful. It's going to cost a lot and lot and lot in regards to your time, and also it's going to be overwhelming. Like there's going to be a lot of operational overheads, or there's going to be a lot of, let me say, frustrations in the whole business process flow, because life is not going to be comfortable at all. It is going to be a lot of um, experiences that cannot be tolerated by the business or even by even the developers themselves. So we wouldn't want to have this in the you don't want to have this at all in the business flow, or even in the business or in the business process. Within the business, it shouldn't even exist in that ecosystem. So it's good to go with automation, whereby it can be, this 73 could even be from just one endpoint that you're working on, and you're testing and deploying and getting feedback. As and when you write the code, then you get real-time feedback. Then the server, Jenkins server, can even send an email, something very, very reliable, something very user friendly, and also improves your own experiences too. So it makes your life easier. So that's the beauty. Just how much, just imagine doing this with the traditional deployment. So frustrating, very, very, very frustrating. All right, so let's just wait. When this is ready, then we'll go ahead and test again. So we'll be back in some couple of minutes. Okay, so our build is ready. So we'll go ahead and call our endpoint, and what we are searching for now is with the updates that we've done in our API. Oh, is this we didn't save it? That would be bad. Uh, let's test it. Let's call the endpoint again. Even before that, let's confirm. We can actually confirm the VPS for the Docker container that we are actually running. The last time we checked was we are running a container on F9C. So we are getting a response. Let's check if it's the same container ID. So we'll go ahead and Docker PS. So the container ID has changed, which means that the old container was stopped and a new one is being deployed, has or is being used, or that's what's running. So we just say Docker container logs. Let's be sure if it logged anything. Yeah. So fantastic, hooray! So it did log. So hooray! Inside the yarn endpoint, and then API endpoints, and then the yarn text message. So we are seeing our new build and the new changes, which is fantastic. So yeah, so I don't, so well, let's say he didn't see, probably we didn't. Yeah, the white space. So it's because of the white space. Okay. Yeah, but everything is working now. So we are good to go, and basically we can see that yes, we've leveraged on a lot of knowledge to get this done and understanding of things. So we are good to go, and I'll say that's it for this code film. And stay tuned for more code films, and we have a lot of interesting stuff that are coming around. So this has been the Docker Jenkins code film, whereby we looked at how Docker and Jenkins are working together for us to be able to deploy our application on a remote server on a VPS. Which we are not using a live VPS. We are using our own instance of a VPS just on our virtual machine. So hopefully in the future, when we start looking at the AWS and the other cloud platforms, then we can start seeing how we are going to make that communication to the VPS. But it's the same principle, it's the same virtual machine, just that it's not sitting on our local host, it's sitting on a different server. Same principles, nothing changes, same connectivity. Just speak to the VPS and make use of it. The only thing that will make it challenging is how is the VPS accessible on the cloud. When we look at that too later on, there's nothing new under the sun. So, all right, guys. So that's it for this cool film, and then I will see you later.